All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you all to the Museum of the Albemarle for today's History for Lunch presentation. Thank you all for coming in on this rainy day. For those of y'all who are here in person, we just ask that you please silence your cell phones. And for those of y'all on Zoom, please mute your microphones and then use the chat for your questions. As always, we'll have a Q&A session for everyone at the end of the lecture. Now, we do have two other History for Lunches coming up this month. Next Wednesday, August 14th at noon, Brittany Proffitt, who is a PhD candidate in Roman archaeology at the University of Missouri-Columbia. She will present an overview of the ongoing work being conducted by her team at the Temple of Venus in Pompeii, as well as specific work she's conducting on wall plaster fragments as part of their efforts to understand that temple complex. So that's next Wednesday at noon. And then on Wednesday, August 21st at noon, Chris Barber will provide insight into the complications of enforcing prohibition in the Albemarle region. That's part of a new book. So that will be a lecture and book signing again on the 21st. Now, today we welcome Master Carpenter and Housewright Russell Steele, who will discuss the restoration of Hyde County's 1857 Octagon House. So please join us in welcoming Mr. Steele.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. I'm going to move around. I just can't stay in one spot. One of the things I want to make sure that everybody knows is where this place is. So if you're driving from here, you either get to go to Columbia and drive over towards Fairfield and Lake Mattamuskeet. That's one way to go. Or you go down to the Outer Banks and go to Manio and then turn and drive 38 miles through the alligator swamp to get to Englehart. So whichever way you go, it seems it's pretty remote. But once you get there, all around this lake it's a big farming community, the seafood industry, but there's historic houses all over the place, all different styles, historic churches, academies, and then you get to this. This is the oldest, one of the oldest photographs we have of the Octagon House. And to me, if you haven't seen it, when you see it for the first time, it's really surprising. It's just unexpected when you're driving along and you see this thing. It's like it's out of place. And my question to you today is, why would somebody build this when you have all these other conventional houses around you? Why do this? What motivates somebody to do that? And I'm going to suggest there's an equation. So on the positive side of things, the guy who built this, he's a genius. He's an innovator. He's an experimenter. He's pushing the limits, the boundaries. He's taking traditional materials and just kind of reconfiguring them. That all sounds pretty good. That's real positive. On the other side of the equation, think about how many times being critical of something, this is strange, this is different. And he's an oddball, he's a nut. And, all those are the negative things that we might, put to this house. And the answer to his motivations, his causes, is somewhere in the middle, I think, because sometimes we all want to be recognized. We want to be appreciated for our efforts. And other times we want to be isolated. We want to hide from things. So this house is like a magnifying lens, and we're trying to focus in on why this guy built this thing. And at the same time, that lens comes back toward us. So it's telling us about our attitudes, about our tendencies and patterns as well. So however we judge him for his building this, sometimes we speak in hyperbolic language. So for instance, when I retire, I'm going to see the world. I'm going to travel all these foreign countries. I'm going to do these things I haven't ever done before. That's kind of hyperbolic language. You're talking out of our hat. This guy built his house. He built his dream house, let's say. So regardless of however we think of him, he did his thing. So let's talk about him a second. This is William Tucker Sparrow from Newbern, and he was born in 1825. And I always try to look at the background of his family. And his father and grandfather, they were shipbuilders. They worked on the water down there, building boats, ships, watercraft, and they were successful at it. So he's not destitute. He comes from a pretty good family, except he doesn't get into the business. His older brother becomes a lawyer. He and his younger brother become doctors. So they're taking a different route. The problem that I see that we have is that hard information is, some of it's there, but there's not a lot. There's a lot of gaps. And we try to fill in gaps. We hypothesize, we theorize, we speculate. We do all those things, trying to figure out this guy. Where was he for 5 years? Between in early 1850s. Where did he go? And so that's a problem. Now we know he did serve in the Civil War. He was a surgeon. He went to Richmond. He served not very long. He was discharged in December 6th in 1861. And 7 months later, 1862, he died. He's 37 years old. We think he died in Petersburg. We don't know where he's buried. And he didn't die of his wounds. He died of typhoid. So he didn't live a very long time. And there's a lot of other associated sadness with his life. But he leaves us this house, and that's an important part of his life. So why does somebody move from Craven County to Hyde County? Why do you do that? So there's usually a couple reasons. Usually you move for work. We move to find a job. Or in his case, my case too, I moved because of love. He found his true love. There she is, Elizabeth. Jeanette, you know that name? That's a pretty old name around these parts. And they married, had a total of 3 children. She dies in 1860, leaving him with 3 young children and a war just about to start. So you can see how this is tragedy building up here. Now, back to why someone builds this kind of house. What is going through their mind? And one of the things that we know is that there was a little book published in 1848. This is the Octagon House. This is a self-help book. Falls in that genre of publications. You can build your own deck, your house, work on your car, whatever. This genre goes back even to the 18th century, when there were publications like Every Man His Own Physician, Every Man His Own Lawyer. So this man who wrote this, Orson Fowler, he lives in New York State. He built his own octagonal house. He built 2 of them, in fact. And he's a propagandist. He's a publicist. He's very encouraging. And here's what he says. He says, you can not only do this, but it's more healthy for you. It's cheaper for you. So why not? So William Sparrow and Orson Fowler, they're kind of on the same wavelength here. They're on this cutting edge. Now, Fowler is a unique character all his own. You could talk about him for a long time. He was a phrenologist. This is somebody who reads the bumps on your head to tell you what kind of disorders you have. And at best, we would call that a pseudoscience. It's a fad, and it kind of goes away. But for a while, it was a pretty hot item. And that's what he was. But he also pushed the benefits of the octagonal house. healthy, all those great attributes. So makes some sense. So let me show you some photographs. I'm going to go through the decades. And the main thing we're looking for are changes that happen to the house over a period of time. That tells us a lot about what's going on, what repairs were made, and so forth. So let's see, here we go. So from the first house, when it was first initially built in 1857, had a shingled roof. You can see that has a metal roof now. So that was a big change. This is a really shallow pitched roof. You can walk up there pretty easily. Shingles probably didn't work all that well. You need a metal roof. The other thing on the side are shingles on the side. So initially this building had a stucco exterior. And that's a little bit unusual in these parts. We don't see that a whole lot. The other thing I think you can start to see is down at the very bottom, about the first 2 or maybe even 3 feet up off the ground. Those are clabbers, and those are probably put on there before the shingles, because you know how when water drips off your house and splashes back onto the wall, and we're thinking that was a place where mold and algae and rot started, so they had to do something there pretty quickly. But all the stucco that was initially on there is covered up by these wooden shingles. So they're making this building work. They're trying to address the problems. Let's see what else we have here. I like this photograph because you can see laundry hanging out on the line. It shows occupation. It's not just a static house. People are living there. Little shed, little outbuilding there. There's trees in the front yard. Those trees are going to disappear before too long. This is the front. You can probably see a little bit more there of the little better description in it. And then there's a shed on the left side there. So there's activity here. And here's a color one. Is this the one? This is the one with the car. This is the one with the car. There's a car there. So from 1857 to about 1958 is the time when there was occupation here. And then sadly, this is what happens. These are photographs that were taken at the time of the first restoration. And so in the late 1970s and into the 1980s, there was a foundation formed for the restoration of this house. And you'll start to see broken glass, a lot of repair problems. Let's see what else we have. Vines growing on the roof and the wall. Here's some more broken windows. Just a lot of trouble. Nobody lives there. So what happens? It just degrades. One more. Yeah, there's some vines. Chimney's falling apart at the top. And here's our sign here. Help save the house. So they did. They did a really fine job saving the house in the 80s. And this is a finished but unpainted photograph of what they were able to do. We fixed the chimney, put a shingle roof on. I'm sure if the windows are in there yet. And here is the finished painted version. So they did a spectacular job finishing that restoration. Now, fast forward to 2017. This is when I started working with Walter Baum. He's down here. He's going to maybe talk to you in a second. But we started finding some problems. So imagine if moisture gets trapped inside that wall. Imagine what's going to happen. So here's what we have. This building is not framed traditionally. It's not balloon framed, it's not timber framed, it's not platform framed. This is a board wall. This goes back to what Orson Fowler was talking about. You can build this house because all you're doing is taking little 5-inch wide boards and laying them on top of each other and nailing them down from the bottom to the top. It's just stacked boards. The one thing you will see, they're not flush. So you'll see the little space in between each board. So they are staggered boards. And that allows for the stucco to stick, to kind of grab itself in that space on the outside, and plaster to be locked in on the inside. So this is a board wall. That's one of the unique things about this house. It's in Fowler's book. In fact, he made this was the method that he chose first. But then he went to another methodology later on. So there's more than one way to build an octagonal house. Here's a pretty good cross section. This is when we had to take a window frame out. And you can see most of these boards are pretty sound. And you can see the staggering there. And that's just the way we do it. Here's a little plaster put in there. But here's what happens when you get rocked. You can literally take your fingers and grab onto that and pull it down. It's like paper. It's like powdery, papery material. So water got trapped behind the stucco. It could not get out. And it's just a recipe for rot. Imagine the walls heating up on the outside during the day, and that water vapor just kind of steaming around. It's a perfect recipe. So in 2017, we started on the roof. I think that's Walter there. So what we did, we had to take, there's 8 facets of this roof now. So it's like you're doing 8 little pie shapes all at the same time. So we removed the old shingles. We put a 1/2-inch sheet of plywood down. We laid it right on top of the old shingle lap. Then we took this sticky black membrane and we laid it all over that roof. And that stuff, it's really important because it helps prevent leaking. When you puncture, when you drive a nail or put a screw in, that material will help minimize any kind of leak. So plywood, this is a sandwich layer. Plywood, then the membrane. Then we put this matrixy, spongy, cushiony material called cedar breather. And when you put that down, and then you put your shingle on top of that, you're creating a little bitty airspace underneath the shingle. And that helps it dry out. So it's going to dry out on the outside, on the exterior. Also, it's got this airspace underneath it. And that's a saving grace there to help create that drying ability. So these shingles are from Canada. They are Western red cedar, and they're also treated. So one of the really wonderful things about Walter and the foundation here is that they have tried to get the very best material. They want to have longevity, the best duration, and so that's what we did, while still keeping the look, the look that it should have. Not something synthetic, but something that looks like it should. So some more shots here. This is all done with a drone. They were almost finished up there. Yeah, that's about it. That's about almost to the top. So that was in 2017. We did that. The next year, 2018, the building was raised up. So it's several feet, not two, but about 3 to 4 feet. And that was a big improvement. And you have a clear, clean, dry space underneath there. It really looks good. Then, beginning in 2019, we started working on the walls. So there's 8 walls. And we started at really the worst one. We knew there were some really difficult spots, and we have to cut out the stucco first off. This is Portland cement stucco. It's really hard. So we would cut out that, then take out any rotten material that we had to. We would have to reframe it. We insulated it, and we just created this sandwich, working our way from the inside out. And what you're seeing here, this is the point where we are ready to start applying stucco. This is a mesh. This is a nylon mesh with little tiny holes in there. So when you put the stucco on, it's going to grab it and key in and lock itself. So that's that point there. Here's the next spot. So we've applied the scratch coat. You have at least three layers. This is the scratch coat. It's a heavy base and covers up all that yellow mesh. And you keep building the sandwich layers until you basically finish the wall. So we would work our way around the buildings. If there were windows that we had to repair, window frames or window sash, we would do that at the same time. We had a few sills we had to replace, sash parts we had to replace. And then once it's all back, we would paint it and then move to the next one. This is the back door. We had to reframe the entire door frame. We kept the door, but just reframed the door. And it goes in stages. So those are the side lights and little panels at the bottom. And then that's it complete, except for the painting. And we have, this is a pretty good picture. This is the paint scheme that resembled that first restoration that we saw a minute ago. And this is a good place to talk about the faux windows. So in Fowler's book, there's some plans, there's floor plans and some elevations and different ideas to get you going. There's some places have wraparound porches, they have cupolas, a lot of different features you can add. And this is our building is pretty simple. And the faux windows were where we kept finding a lot of issues. There was really good flashing behind the window trim, with the only exception that they did not turn it out. There was no way for the water that was trapped to get outside. So instead of putting those the window trim back, we opted to just paint on this representation of a window. And we hope that's going to make a big difference. Here we go. Here is, those two fellows are looking at the window there. I think this is the north wall, right, Walter? That north? I think that's it. So that's where we are today. We're on our we're finishing up the 7th wall. We have the last wall to do. I think we'll be able to do that this year. And then we can rest after that. So that's pretty much what I wanted to. This is more or less a progress report. We have a little bit more work to do. We've done quite a bit over the past few years, but this is where we're gonna stop. I have one more thing there. There it is for Claire. So that's it. Thank you. Did you want to say anything, Walter? This go.
And if you say, all places of brush that's done at the start at the Oxford, the got started in 2017 with the book. Needed a helper. So I knew it kind of a hammer to pick up. I'm still helping them and learn something every day. I moved from the book, the windows, the wall, and it's been innovative. It was exciting. My wife, Leah, has a quick word handouts on the back.
I'll just stay right here. I hope everybody can hear me. I do want to just add one comment here. I asked the people when the house would be raised up and they had it in the air. I asked them how much did it show it was being weighed. It weighed 160 tons. So and it's the boardwalk construction. But anyway, that was that. And I am here also just to say, please, at the back table, there are a couple of brochures. There's a rack card, gives a little history of the house. And also, on this particular color one, it describes a little bit about the Madam Street apple tree orchard that Walter photographed for and some old apple trees in Hyde County, South Sea apple, and different varieties of that Madam Street apple from different yards. Please pick up some of these. That's why, obviously, we have the apple image. And of course, we have to carry through the 8-sided because we are an 8-sided Octagon House. I can just also end by saying, we don't circle back. We always Octagon back.
Yes, sir.
What's it look like inside? How's that?
Okay. There are two big rooms downstairs, two big rooms upstairs, and then there are these what I would call trapezoidal rooms. There's no right angles in these rooms. So when you walk in the front door and you can walk in a little hallway out the back door. So this is a perfect breezeway. And one of the former residents said they used that as an inside porch because they would catch the wind coming from the southwest just blowing right through. It made the airflow was really, really good there. So there's two big rooms downstairs, and then the two trapezoidal rooms, and the layout is the same upstairs as well, where the bedrooms are. There was an outside kitchen. We have the remnants of the chimney there now, and there were some other related outbuildings to farming and livestock as well. So,
What's the square footage of the house?
there's
It's over 900 square.
yeah. Yes, sir.
Chimney, you say, so there's a fireplace, where's the fireplace located?
Right in the middle, right in the middle of everything. So there are in those big rooms I just mentioned ago. There's a fireplace in each big room downstairs, and similarly upstairs there are two fireplaces in each big room upstairs. All go. So when we did a little work when we were doing the roof and we finished out the roof, there's a little chimney repair, a little brickwork we had to do. There are 4 flues coming into one stack. And then we covered that with a big sheet of copper to kind of keep. No, we don't. It's there's no flue liners. It's all brick. It's a little. They would frown on that today if we used it in the state that it was in. Yes, ma'am. About 58. Yeah, 58. Yeah. Well, I keep asking about a Christmas time open house kind of thing. what are, Claire, would you want to address that?
Open house, or maybe something in the summertime, a fall event, or maybe the apple orchard. But there will also be, a virtual tour available that you can see the inside of the house, whether it's what you can experience as a construction site. That is another plan idea, so that somebody can stop there, drop code, whatever. It does have furnishings in there, but what we are trying to do is highlight, period furnishings. And we try to, emphasize that in the furnishings.
What happened to the trees?
Well, they lived, that was their lifespan. They were taken. Some of them died, and then I think the other ones were probably just taken, Gina. There is supposedly a doctor's office somewhere on the grounds. We don't know where. This is a separate little office out there somewhere. And
This may be entirely out of your realm.
Okay.
But this was a Dr. Sparrow
Mhm.
who had come from Newbern.
That's right.
There was a Sparrow family in Scranton,
Uh-huh.
up at Montgomery. I just wonder if you know if there's any connections.
Well, I can tell you this, he married his second cousin. There's some family connections there. There was another member of his family from Newbern that had come to Hyde to find, so there, yeah, you're right. There is some connections there, family connections. Yep. Hey, Barbara.
The other outbuildings were, what they made in school.
Well, we know pretty well where that kitchen is. The chimney is right there, and that's the only thing really left of it. That's just right out the back door, maybe 25 feet away. The other buildings that you saw in the slides, the big one would be more or less in the edge of the field next to us. But as far as Claire, do you guys, there was no any, Walter?
Not that the Octagon House sits on, is smaller than what we see here. So that explains why the outbuildings, or, Dr. Sparrow, that, married the second cousin. So, maybe Russ mentioned that, I don't know, but anyway, the Octagon House sits in the exact location where it was built. Many, historic buildings have been moved across the lot, around the corner, down the road. But, Octagon House is originally built. How much land?
How much land? Wait, well, let me go back a little bit here. In 1857 seemed to be the important year for this family for several reasons. Elizabeth's father died in that year, and she inherited 80 acres. That's a good thing for her. William Sparrow cashed out his part of that shipbuilding enterprise in Newbern, so he had some funding. Their second child was on the way, And that's when this house, 57 was when this house was constructed. So it's like they had all the parts that you need to build a house. Money, land, and you have a family, you know. Yeah. And it's just across the field from the Jeanette house, which is still there today, where she grew up. Yes, ma'am. Okay. um, I guess the easier way we do the projects. Well, upstairs, let me kind of advertise the museum here. If you go upstairs, you'll see a local building, the Jackson House, that I was involved with. That was a really interesting project. All parts were there, some parts weren't there, and the reason buildings last is because they find other uses besides just being lived in. So that building became kind of a farm building. They stored grain or fertilizer or chemicals or something in there, related to farming. So that's how these buildings last. I had a friend, Ed Chappell, who is no longer with us. He's a friend, colleague, mentor, in one of the things I think about a lot. He said this very casually. I said, a building is the biggest artifact that we leave behind. And in cases where you have someone who doesn't leave a lot of records or leaves gaps in the records, the house itself becomes that record. And that's why I was mentioning that, the magnifying glass. We're trying to focus in on, what was going on in this man's mind. And then conversely, we're looking at ourselves, how our attitudes are, or our patterns and tendencies and things like that we look at. So the Jackson House was a good one. This is a great one. I did worked on one near Annapolis called, it was at London Town. We did a couple there. And you asked the reason why I got into it. I think for me, there's something important about learning about the people and the men and the not anonymous people, the unknown craftsmen who maybe worked on this building, the Octagon House. There's something about lifting them up, encouraging them. But one of the amazing things that I have witnessed is that they have the same problems in building that people do have today, and they have to solve that problem. And sometimes there are really simple, fast, kind of quick and dirty solutions, and that's appropriate because you don't have a lot of time to waste. You've got to get something done. Then other times there are really elegant, sophisticated solutions. There's a house in Mecklenburg County in Virginia. This is Presswood Plantation. This is where Sir Peyton Skipwith lived. He got his money in shipping in Norfolk. He owned the dockyards. Anyway, during the Rev War, he had Hessian soldiers who were prisoners of war there. And you can go up into the attic, and I was able to go up into the attic, and I looked at the joinery, I looked at the precision. It was beautiful. It's just so you're not trying to negate one or the other. It's just that here they had skillful craftsmen, they had time, and why not make it as good as you possibly can? It was. That's my thing. Just I want to learn about these people that did this, how they did it, what they thought about. That's what I do. Thank you. That is a good question. Yes, ma'am.
How many put in here in the 50s when people were living here?
Oh, do we have this when the plumbing was? We have it now. we have a little bathroom now, thankfully. Do we know that, Claire? Okay. Now, so one thing I did want to mention now, we'd have to go back. Let's go back. Find it here. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm working. Yeah. Nope. Where is it? It's really hard to tell. I have a pointer. Yeah. That's a water collection system. There's a cistern in the ground. There's no well. So they were collecting water from the roof with gutters and funneling it down into that cistern. That was part of their plumbing system. So, and you would take it, how about, like an old hand pump, and that's how you would get it out. Oh, the car. Okay. I think that's great. It shows people are there. It shows that it's not. Okay. Anything else? Thank you very much. Thank you, Hyde County folks, for showing up here, and Claire for helping me out with the slides here. We couldn't have done it without that. No, it's all yours.